Good evening, whoever is there. Um, Welcome to the class. Wet versus dry pallets. I know it's backwards. Um, that's because when I do the Instagram live streams, it ends up backwards, and that's the one from the Instagram live stream. Um, so yeah, there you go. All right, give me a shout. Who's in? War Griffin says hello. Brilliant. Hello, Mr. War Griffin. Let's give some people a chance to join in. I'm actually watching myself on two screens here. One's got slight lag. It's really strange. 10 people. Have we got 10 people in? 11 people. Honestly, right, I am well excited now. Honestly, I can't tell you how excited I am. The fact that you guys have turned up. Right. Zowanite, greetings from Wakefield. Greetings. Remember a great skate park in Wakefield. Rampworks? Or was that might have been Liverpool, actually. Mark Coxey, hello, evening all. Hello, Tom Jennings. Hello, Tom Jennings is one of our Patreon supporters, so big special thanks to him. War Griffin, you enjoyed the Insta Live, so this will be great. I hope so, because these are pretty different to Insta Lives. You know, Insta Live I kind of do what I want to do, and what pops out. Whereas this is very much rehearsed, not necessarily deliberately rehearsed. What it is I've taught it so much, and I've gone through these points so much that it's naturally been refined into just what is useful. Excluding my random wafflings, of course. Who else is in? Andy Skeleton gives me a funny little symbol. What's that funny little symbol? Is it a disappointed face? I hope it's not a disappointed face. It's got a slash on it, hasn't it? Hi, Tommy. Evening all. Greetings from sunny Cornwall. Have I met you in Cornwall? Because I did run the churro store for a short time. It's a bloke waving. All right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Nice one, Andy. Yeah, again, so there's 11 of you in now. Brilliant. Johnny Boyd, hiya, man. Honestly, I'm well happy that you guys are here. So thank you. So yeah, I ran the churro store for autumn up to Christmas, something like that. As a standing manager, about 3 years ago. A lot of fun, that, I must admit. Hey, so Colonel has joined. Christoph Keel has his own YouTube channel. Fantastic converter. Like, if you want great conversion advice, go and see that guy. Mark, hello. Also one of my Patreon subscribers, Mr. Mark Fisher. Lovely guy. Helped me out in a couple of different ways, actually, financially, as Mark. He's bought stuff from the affiliate link through Element Games. Very grateful for that. And he bought my first eBay auction. Well done, you. Not forgot, will never forget, and greatly appreciated any help that people give through those mediums. The slightly insecure part of me wants to say things like, and he's coming out, I'm saying it anyway. I know I'm not as consistent or maybe even as polished as some other YouTube channels. But I work on that, and I'm well aware of it. But at the same time, I can't let it get me down, because then why would I want to carry on if it's getting me down, or I'm letting me get down? 14 people in. Brilliant. So yeah, thank you to those people who want to support me through whatever means. In fact, let's just talk about that support. and talk about the plans for this video as well. So this video I want to leave up and I want to leave public as an example to what kind of teacher I am when I'm teaching a class. Okay, and if I do any videos in future, yeah, I also want everyone to have the opportunity to have access to those lessons, but at the same time I can keep disregarding the special gesture that my Patreon supporters actually give me each month. So I also want these videos to encourage people to attend the videos live. Okay, it's important. It's important for how I teach, and it's important for how you learn, because it's the way these videos will give you the most. So with those 3 points in mind, when I do new videos, so anyone who sees this video will see it as an example of what you get, yeah, if you attend a live stream. If you miss the live stream after a period of time, I will put it to my Patreon only. So either way, 2 sets of people, subscribers and non-subscribers, you have to make an effort. Either you be here, the time and place, that's your effort if you're a non-subscriber, yeah, and it's available for a certain amount of time. And if you are a subscriber, I'll put it up public in my YouTube channel. I think that's really fair, because to have these videos just scripted and me talking to a non-audience, just talking to a camera, what they don't deal with necessarily is any of your specific issues you may or may not have with the subject and or anything else really that comes up. But I really would like to keep it about wet pallets. So that's the way I'd like to move on. Wow, there's 18 of you. Honestly, right? I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Let's have a look, see what comments are flying in. Right, okay. Colonel says, great concept. Thank you. I'm glad you think it's a great concept. I don't know if anybody knows as well, and I only found out the other day. Apparently this thing is, which side is it on? Oh, it's there. This chat thing on the left, my left, it's all backwards and upside down in this world. Apparently you can make donations through the super chat thing as well. I've never seen that happen, and I'd be very grateful if that happened as well. Apparently it's for things like bumping your comment up to the top of the priority list, or even just for the sake of generosity. So while I'm talking about people supporting me, there you go. So anyway, I got into a quick waffle. These live streams will be available for everybody, but after a certain amount of time, they will go to my Patreon supporters. For the other ways that people can support me financially and get something out of it is there's links below in almost all my videos to the brushes that I prefer to use and to a cheaper Myrmidon if you want, and that's through an affiliate link with Element Games. I also link to brushes that other great painters use, so you have a choice of not just my weapons of choice, but other people who may inspire their weapons of choice. You know, so things like Element Games character and regiment brushes, they're my average priced brush weapon of choice. So they're not too expensive. They're not really that well known, but I love them. Yeah. Now, at the moment, I am using a Winsor Newton size 2, but that's just because I had it. If and when I buy new brushes, they'll probably be those Element Games ones. And then if you're looking for brushes like the likes of Richard Gray and David Soper use, and you're looking at Artist Opus, there's also a link below for those things. You know, so that way you get in, and those 2 brushes are very different creatures, by the way, very different creatures. So there you have it. Different ways you can help me and get some out of it. So thank you. And there's 22 people in this live stream. Honestly, I'm blown away by that because I expected it to be a bit of a damp squib. Not that I didn't have faith in you guys, but the last few ones of these I've done, I've just been sat here like talking to just like me and maybe 1 or 2 other people that bobbed in now and again. Like I say, I'm trying to give this knowledge to you guys in the best way possible. So your attendance is well appreciated. All right, let's begin this. In fact, let's have a quick look, see what other comments gone. Edna the Lion. Hi, Edna. Mark Fisher, you know you're still using the palette we created. Thank you. No, you say we created. You made them, Mark. So Mark made a load of pallets, which was very generous of him to use at my Bromley. It was Bromley or Romley, somewhere in London. We ran a painting class there, and Mark just generously made dry pallets for everybody, which was just fantastic, you know, because almost every time, whenever I send a letter out for what you need to bring to attend a class, almost everyone forgets the important things, which generally are palette, notepad and pen. Now, I said in the prep to this video, bring a notepad and pen, bring some questions, so I hope you've all got relevant questions as well. Right, moving on down the comments, and then I'm going to ignore them for a little bit. Fishy says, hi Tommy, really enjoy your videos. Any relation to Mark Fisher, by the way? Are you not the young Fisher by any chance, who also attended my course? All right, so notepad and pen for those that would like to take notes. Every now and again things pop out of my mouth that I probably will forget myself, you know, and it's really useful to take notes. Why is it useful to take notes? Because it creates a new pattern of neurons in your mind, as well as the pattern of neurons that I'm creating now in your mind, through your ears, through your eyes, yeah? You'll create one through feel if you write it down, and through a different visual set of inputs, different set of visual stimuli. So whether writing it down is your thing or not, it still will have an impact. Even if the lesson is, oh, I hated writing it down. Well, what did you write down? Oh, I wrote down this. So you've memorized it. Check it out. Bonus. You see what I mean? So I genuinely recommend multiple ways of recording lessons. So yeah, there you go. Okay. Do you think you need to put in 80 hours plus to compete in a painting competition? No, I reckon the right person could paint a winning competition piece in a night. No, it's about how efficient a painter you are, how much you understand taste and artistic flair enough to please the criteria of any judges. So first you need to get to know judges, and even though that's not a guarantee. And you need to have a lot of passion. And all those things will show through more than hours. Now, it will take hours in order to practice and get up to a certain standard, or a good teacher, but, you know, I know people that have painted a model the night before and gone on to win a demon the next day. Literally the night before Golden Demon. You know, so hours is not a thing. And if you look through my Cool Mini or Not gallery, one of my highest rated miniatures, it was on something like a 9.1 out of 10. I did that in about 4 hours. You know, 4 or 5. That's Aegean Devanth, which is an old confrontation model, got like big antlers. So Cool Mini or Not, Google my name, Tommy Sewell, and go and have a look through my gallery, and you'll see the model I did in like no time. There was a lad sat with me as well, Dave Neal, also a fantastic painter. He witnessed it stroke for stroke. So miniature painting is a funny world, and our assumptions about the efforts that go into it are generally a little bit inside out and wrong. Right, I am cracking on with this lesson. Cheers for the questions. Let's hopefully I'm going to answer the questions that are most relevant to this subject from this point on. And he says, no one gets distracted. And I'm amazed that there's 26 people in. Like, it's over the moon. I'm pointing up there because I'm on a mobile phone, by the way. If you're on a PC, you'll see me pointing at nothing, but I'm in mobile phone, there's a little icon there that tells me how many people are in. So yeah, but I've got no likes though. What's that all about? Slap like now. All right, so we're not just going to talk about wet pallets versus dry pallets. I'm going to actually, I'd like to talk about all pallets, including ceramic and these things. But these will come later, because initially I want to get the wet versus dry thing out of the way. Right, wow, 27 people and 3 likes, 4 likes. Check you guys out. Honestly, right, if this carries on, I don't know what algorithms YouTube uses, but if I could make this a living, yeah, and do it from anywhere on the planet, yeah, and teach people anywhere and everywhere, that would absolutely make my life. I properly mean it. I'm nearly doing a little cry now. I don't know if you can feel that, right? But I just love teaching. I love teaching you guys more than I love painting my own models. Which is why you don't see that much painting from me anymore. Because I feel like I've done everything that makes me happy with painting. Right now, what makes me happy with painting is seeing you guys progress. That's really kind of why my social media is in the state it's in, because really your progression is more important to me right now. So again, thank you. Like, I properly mean it. I'm still waiting to do a little cry. I can feel it right there, just pushing its way up. Anyway, okay. Just tap water in a wet pallet or sterilised ionised. Just tap water, man. Just tap water. Honestly. Right. Overcomplicate everything most painters do. Everything. And it's generally not the ones at the top that are overcomplicating it. Yeah. That's the thing. That's for another lesson, for another time. Or a private lesson for those that want it. Links down below. All right, so here we are. It's backwards. I know it's backwards. That's because Instagram does things backwards. Actually, on my screen, it's the right way around. On my PC screen, it's backwards, so I can also see what you guys can see. But we're going to get rid of this because here we are, the time and place. Have you got your notepads, pens, questions ready? Have you got an open mind? Because I tell you what, most of you are about to have a teaching experience like you've never had, and I'm confident in that. I've earned that confidence in myself. Like I said, I don't necessarily, while this is well rehearsed, I don't rehearse it. While this is well rehearsed, it's never written down. Everything I'm about to teach you is about, it's built out of experience as a painter, professionally and socially, experience as a teacher, professionally, and I'll say socially as well, because I'll just teach people randomly for nothing. People don't have to pay me. I'll see somebody struggling with a paintbrush, I'll help them. I can't help it. Okay, so some things about how I teach. I encourage you to ask questions. I also encourage you to call bullshit in the most polite possible way, because there's a couple of things that happened. A couple of things that'll happen if you call me out on something. Either I've made an oversight, yeah, and I'd like to know what that oversight is, and then when I know it, I get better as a teacher, yeah, or I just forgot something and you've reminded me. All right. The other thing is you're wrong, and I tell you why you're wrong, and I make you right. Either way, we all win. All right. So bear that in mind. I encourage questions. I also don't mind being challenged a little bit. All right. Now, part of asking questions on your part and being wrong is valuable to everybody else and yourself. So don't be scared of asking questions that might seem stupid or might seem like you're going to get wrong. Yeah. So this is about just letting go of the ego a little bit. Because if you ask a question, somebody else might benefit from that answer. All right. So questions, we'll keep it relevant and on topic, blah, blah, blah. The next thing is I really like to keep my teaching as fact-based as possible. So I like to really keep my opinions out of it, which means it's not me trying to teach you to be like me, other than maybe a certain method of thinking. It's more about you then being free to make your own decisions and develop your own style with information that is only going to forge you forward as opposed to hold you back. Okay, and I work hard when I ad lib these things to make sure that the information you get is as unbiased as possible. There are times I have my opinions, likes and dislikes, but you know that, and I'll happily say what they are. But as a teacher, generally, I find being as fact based as possible is the way I go. Now, the next thing is I like to get you to give me the answers. Why do I like to get you to give me the answers? I like to get you guys to give me the answers because I am proving to you that you have the power to develop yourselves. Yeah, not just do what I say. I'm trying to create free thinking, self-developing artists here. And this free thinking kind of modality, this mindset that I'm teaching you within the miniature painting subject can be applied to anything else in your life. Yeah, whether it be your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your professional, financial well-being. You know, I absolutely believe that you can go forwards, yeah, using this kind of mentality. Okay. That said, be prepared for a lot of questions. The first question is can I get what have we got here? There's 23 people, 24 people in. I need to see how quickly you guys can respond to the questions. Okay, so we're beginning now properly. I need to see how quickly you guys respond to questions. Can I see 24 thumbs up or something like that in the comment section? Yeah, just bang a yes or a thumbs up or a devil horns or whatever. Let's see how quick you can respond. Because it's only once you've all responded will I then move on. There we go. Nice one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I also get to see you. Zin as well. Arsney. Chichikov. I like that name. Cool. Matt Prescott. Hello. Joel Davidson. Hello. End of the line. Hello. Brilliant. You're all here. Roger. I like that. Macca's88. Nice. Joe Holzman. Hello. Fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Elliot Biggs, hello. You're all wonderful, by the way. 26 people. Matthew Betts, hello. Also a student of mine. If you want opinions on how I teach, the way I teach in private lessons, go and see Matthew, and he'll give you a Kel F. Also had private lessons off me. There's a few people here you can ask if you want opinions on what I'm like as a teacher in private lessons or classes. So yeah. Arsene, big fan. Thank you, Mum. Is pen and paper enough? Should you get the paints and brushes? You could get paints and brushes if you like, but today it's not essential. This is very much a me kind of lecturing and getting you guys involved in a very particular way of thinking. Yeah, it's not how to paint. It's what and how should we think about the palettes we told to use or told to avoid. Yeah, and it's all pretty confusing out there in the world, I've got to admit. So I'm helping you guys make clear, educated decisions on what palette you choose and why. Okay, we ready to begin? Cheers for all them little icons that popped up there. I'm sure there wasn't 26 of them, but whatever, I'll let it slide. You know, some people like to remain incognito. Okay, so let's talk wet palettes first because that's generally the most confusing area. Here's my dry palette, by the way. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, wet palette. Let's go through the facts of a wet palette. So, there we go. Could do that light shining all over this. Trusty whiteboard. I love me whiteboard. Right, so a wet palette works like this. Or a wet palette is this. First thing a wet palette is a tray. Yeah, we all agree on that? A wet palette is a tray. Yeah? Anybody disagree that it's a tray? Within the tray is some water. Anybody disagree on that? I enjoy doing the water bit, by the way. I assume by the lack of answers, we all agree that it's a tray, then there's some water, generally in that order. Next is a sponge. We all agree on that? On top of the sponge is some kind of porous film. Yeah, baking paper, tracing paper, or whatever special word some guy marketed those two things to you so you pay more. Bear that shit in mind. Every time. Yeah. I'm encouraging you to make wet pallets. Okay? War Griffin says you put whiskey in yours. Hopefully that's a great way of keeping any bugs from growing in it. Yeah. That happens with wet pallets, believe it or not. Looks like a tray full of sharks. These are waves, man. Right, so tray, water, sponge, porous film, paint. We have now completed a wet palette. Maybe over completed if you say the paint isn't necessarily part of a wet palette, but you know, what's a wet palette without paint on it? An unused piece of equipment, essentially, and we'll talk about it in its used stage. Okay, we all agree. Have I missed anything from a wet palette? Yeah. So let's get 20 odd answers straight on. Have I missed anything from a wet palette? The lid. I don't need a lid when I'm painting. You can put a lid on it. There you go. There's my lid. I like the fact there's a lid. That's alright. But yeah, lid, or as I like to call it, dry palette. Liquid talent. Yeah. Paint. You know, I'm not going to get distracted by that comment. It's a smart comment. You're full of liquid talent already, you guys. You just don't know it. You're born with all this talent, believe it or not, and you just gets weighted down by bullshit. And that's what these lessons are designed to do, is cut through all the bullshit. Okay, now let's talk about how the wet palette works. Capillary action draws water. In fact, let's choose a different colour. I like my dry wet pens. My blue ones ran out, or I've lost it or something like that. I'm a bit gutted about that. So via capillary action, water is drawn up through the sponge, through the film, and into the paint. Yeah, that's how a wet palette works. Via convection, then evaporation, that water moves around in the paint and comes out via evaporation. Okay, is that how a wet palette works? Yeah, without manipulating it with your brush. Yeah, let's get a bunch of answers flying through now. I need to know y'all are paying attention or are engaged with this. All right, because remember, your responses, yeah, dictate kind of what you learn and how things. Nice when you're flying through. Right, good. So let's talk. Now we've got how a wet palette works. All right. Let's talk about. Let's talk about painting in general. Painting in general is about having control. Yeah. The more control we have, the better a painter we're going to be. The more control we've got over our brush, over our paint, over our water, over our model. Does anybody disagree with that? Now, for those smarties, I want to say, well, yeah, what just what splatter painter? Well, you choose to do that 100%. So that's still 100% control. So if you want to up your level of painting skill, of painting quality, of painting standard, whatever you want to call it, do you need more control? Anybody think that a lack of control is in any way forging you towards getting better quality? You know, sharper lines, smoother blends, accurate freehands, painting expressive eyes and textures and things like that. I'm sure we can all agree that control is what is needed. Okay. We all agreed. Y'all have slowed down a little bit Come on, suckers. Bang our one button. Just a button. Have a smiley up or something. Just whack it. Unless you're all taking notes. If you're taking notes, then it's all right. Okay. So we're all. I'm gonna. He who controls the paint controls the painting. That is very eloquently put. I like that, Mr. Colonel. Sounds good. Says Malan02. Hello, by the way. So here we are. There's a wet palette doing its do. Now we've not added the painter into this mix yet, but we'll deal with that in a second. All right. So control. I'm just seeing if there's any more answers popping up. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna move on now. So we don't just want to interrupt the master. I won't call it necessarily. Thank you, Bella. I'll just say thank you. All right, so there's our wet palette. So let's get the old black pen out now. Now, given that we've decided control is important, diluting your paints and having control of the dilution of your paint is also important, because there's a very specific state that your paint needs to be diluted to, as per what the internet says and most people say. So give me some examples of what the internet might say your paint needs to be thinned to the consistency of, and what kind of ratios. Start giving me a bunch of examples. What does in general the internet say you need to do to thin your paints? Tom Jennings says milk. Brilliant. Baby tears. Semi-skim milk, says Jonathan Boyd. Like cow booby milk. Nice. Okay, so we all agree that there's somewhat going on. All right. Here's a question. How much control... Now, in order to get your paint that way, you need to start saturating it, okay? How much control over saturation, which is this capillary reaction here, from the water, through the sponge, through the film, into the paint, how much control over saturation do you have? Give it me in a percentage, if you will. How much control over saturation? Let's call this saturation. Control, can't spell. None to very little. I'm glad there's been none of the smart ass answers so far. Not much. Chuff all. Mark Cox, he says. Hi, Mark Cox. Fishy says 30%. 30%? What 30? Just describe that 30% from the palette. Yeah. Even yourself. Yeah. Let's say I put the ideal consistency of milk there. Let's say I create it and this wet pallet's there doing its job. If I leave it for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, how much more saturated is that paint? Or is it not more saturated? Has the wet palette done magically kept it exactly how you left it? How much more control? Well, somebody said you've lost me. So War Griffin, capillary action, yeah. In other words, the sponge and the paper and the paint are constantly soaking up water. Yeah, it doesn't stop soaking up water unless the water is gone. Okay, can you control the rate at which this paint sucks up this water through these two things? That's the question I'm asking. All right. Glad you piped up there, by the way. Thank you. There might be others that are a bit lost as well. So can you control the rate at which the paint soaks up the water from the tray? Can you control it? Now bearing in mind, for those that want to say, oh yeah, you can change the temperature in the room. I tell you what, if you need a glaze 1 minute and a dry brush the next minute, I ain't cooling the room down or heating it up. It's not happening. Okay. Brilliant. I'm glad you got that, War Griffin. Nice one, man. You can't. Controlling the saturation in the sponge. How would you control on a moment-to-moment basis the saturation in the sponge? Got more chance of controlling the weather, says Mark. And these are all very good answers. And believe it or not, they're all answers I want. I do also want answers that contradict me, that make me work a little bit, because there may be more of you in there. Oh, wow, there's 29 people in here. Buzz in. Hello, you newcomers. So, add more water or add more paint? Remember this answer. Remember this answer. Add more water, add more paint. Now, is it the wet palette that adds more water or adds more paint? All right. Save that question for in a little bit. So I'm going to put a big fat 0 there. You have 0 control over saturation. Okay. I could maybe squeeze the sponge. I could maybe change the type of sponge. I could maybe change the type of paper. But what if the next thing I need to paint a minute later needs a different rate of saturation, different kind of saturation, blah, blah. It's all of a sudden real impractical if you think you can control these things. The only thing you could probably immediately do to control it is get a hairdryer on it and dry it out. But who wants drier paint? And if you did want drier paint, why do you want a wet palette? See what I mean? When I start to put it out like this, you start to see the logic of where I'm taking you. I say where I'm taking you. These are just facts as they are. It's not my opinion. Phil Gregory, 2 pallets together. Remember that for later on. Okay. So, on to the next part. Evaporation. How much control over evaporation do we have? Because that's the next mechanic taking place. At least the next mechanic I'm bothered about, evaporation. How much control over evaporation do we have? Other than getting a hairdryer and just blasting it. Chris Denmark, I'm glad you made it. Nice one, man. I'm glad you made it. None, says Mark. Fishy says none. Colonel says none. Johnny Boy says none. Asney says none. Go on, Mark. There's 32 of you now. I'm so great. Honestly, I can't tell you how happy I am. There's 30 odd of you in here. Chris Denmark says very little. How much control over evaporation do you have? Brilliant. Lid on or off? Well, let's assume we're painting. Yeah. Even with the lid on, can you control saturation? Can't, man. You use a dropper bottle to rehydrate your wet paint or wet palette. Either way, that dropper bottle is not the wet pallet's mechanic. That's your mechanic. So we store that bit of information for later on, because it's all relevant. All you guys that come up with contradictions and potential, well, I might just call smart answers, because some people just like to put answers thinking they're smart or just to be funny or whatever. But they're actually all quite valuable as well. So keep them all coming. They're all useful. Yeah, and I'll get to all these points further down the line, because right now I'm interested in this mechanic. Just the meta, as the nerds would say. The meta of what a wet palette does and how it does it. So, War Griffin says, well, I'm God, so 100% control. Nice, okay. All right, so I'm going to put a big fat 0 there just to move this lesson along. If anyone wants to contradict that, feel free. Yeah, we can hairdryer it, speed it up, but like I said, if you want dry paint, move it under your hot desk lamp, says Andy. Yeah, but again, if you want your paint drier, why are you using a wet palette? Why are you putting it on a wet palette? Yeah, again, very valid point of view, I'd say. Quick drink, lemon water. It's not egg yolk, or is it? You know, and we're talking actual dry brushing, not the artist opus Byron Ord method of what I might call damp massaging. All right. Okay. Any questions on anything I've said so far? Any bullshits to call? Anything to add? Anything I've forgotten? Yeah, because remember, your input, yeah, valid in this. It's not even valid. It's essential. All right. Anybody got anything to add? No, very precise so far. Thank you. Hey, that's something that, because this fella here is from Germany. Yeah, and if he's saying it's precise, then it's got to be precise. Is that racism? I don't know. Crystal clear. Nice one, Anthony. I'm glad you're with it. Thank you. We all taking notes, by the way. Tag me in some pictures on Instagram. Put your pictures of this thing. If you've taken any notes, take a picture and tag me on Instagram. Making sense so far. Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Here. I keep pointing at the comments, which is on my mobile phone. You guys won't see it. But Dieru, how do you say SJC? I'm just going to call you. Says good advice. Also has had private lessons with me and also has been on my courses. So again, if you want to know what it's like, ask the people that have been there. I would just tell you it's awesome and it's worth all the money in the world. But you know, why should you believe me? Believe the people who have been on, how good or how bad it is. Pretty sure everyone is going to say it's good, you know. Okay. Will there be a test at the end of the class? I tell you what, right? I'm actually devising certain tests for students. I'm thinking about it because I really want my students to progress, and I think what a lot of students of mine are lacking at the moment is a foreseeable path. So I'm starting now to give people little projects just to help cultivate some skills, and I want to see those skills cultivated before moving on, because I really believe you guys can win demons. I genuinely guarantee it. But it takes you applying the lessons. Well, how do I know you've applied the lessons? Well, show me results. Simple as that. So how do I know you're showing me the results? Well, you've got to have something that's definable. I'll set those definitions. You work within them. If you work perfectly within them, then we're going to move on. You know, I think that's a great way of going forward. Okay. So, painting and being a great painter is about having control. So far, when it comes to having control, how good does a wet palette look? How good does a wet palette look? Right now. If you now know, we all agree you need control. And anybody who's had a lesson with me, yeah, when I show you some of my one brushstroke blends, blending one brushstroke from black to white, blending one brushstroke, not two brushstrokes with two brushes, one brush, one brushstroke. How much control do you think you need? Yeah. And then how much control over probably what is the biggest painting mystery in the world, which is what consistency does my paint need to be. Remember, again, I'm very much leading you here, but so far I'm only giving you facts. Now you've got some facts about a wet palette. How good does a wet palette look? Now, there's more than meets the eye going on here, but we'll deal with that later on. So the big question is, why are you using wet palettes? Why are wet palettes being recommended? Yeah. Now, bear this in mind. There are two types of great painter, and I'm talking great painters. Those who use wet palettes and those that don't. Let's say you've got a 10 out of 10 painter, two of them, one that uses a wet palette and one that doesn't. If you can do it without a wet palette, why do you need to buy a wet palette? If you need a wet palette, you know, do you see where I'm going? If you've got a great painter that doesn't use a wet palette, what's he got that you don't? Don't say dry palette, because you probably will have a dry palette, but he's developed skills. He's developed control. Now, the painter that's using a wet palette that's at the top, he's also developed skills, and he's also developed controls over these things. Yeah. So there's value to be found in both. Yeah. But go into this with your eyes open. Here's some facts. They don't change. Many people struggle to use wet pallets. So here's the question. Why do most people use wet pallets? Especially beginners and intermediates. There's a couple of reasons. So let's have a look. SJC says you stopped using mine during that painting weekend with me. Thank you. Hype is a good. So Tom Jennings says hype. Colonel says control. Arseny says it prevents paint from drying and you don't need to mix paint as often. Advertising, they see the pros using them because paint does not dry immediately because they are told to. Do you see all these reasons? They don't actually seem artistically minded. All these reasons that are coming through. So hype, advertising, pros are all peer-based, dogma-based reasons. That's none of those reasons are practical. Okay? Right? Because paint does not dry immediately with a wet palette. Paint doesn't dry immediately with a dry palette. You know, that's an interesting argument to that. You know what I mean? It doesn't just go dry. You know, though paint is always evaporating, the moisture in paint is always evaporating. You believe the wet palette helps with consistency. What do you mean by the word consistency? Does paint in the pot have consistency? Does a drop of paint in my water pot have consistency? What do you mean by consistency? See, we bandy words around our painting community, and actually we don't really have a grasp of what we're actually saying. Yeah. Wargriffin, Joe Holzman says preference. That's an okay answer, but preference based on what? Believe the wet palette helps with consistency. The reason you got one because of the pros, says Wargriffin. Colonel says it does dry out straight away on his desk. Can't argue with that. Right, Joel Davison, keeping colour mixes consistent over multiple miniatures. That's very interesting. A very interesting way of looking at it. You'll still end up adding more paint, I assume. Does your paint? Does this dilution process? Yeah. Does this change the consistency of your paint over a certain amount of time, or does it stop when you want it to? If you've mixed that ideal colour. Okay, Chris Denmark says, I used one as he didn't have confidence that you'd be able to remix colours since you ditched. Since I ditched on after our lesson, you've become a lot better at that skill. So what you're saying is you've become better at mixing consistencies and colours since the lesson. You find that you add more paint when not using a wet palette. Yeah. Probably will. You'll also add paint when using a wet palette as well. When this process dilutes this paint too much, what will you need to do? You find that you add more paint when not using a wet palette. It helps in hot countries where evaporation is very high. Yep, there you go. A great tip there is Luke's APS, if you know Luke. He uses a dry palette when it's too hot. I don't use a wet palette when it's too hot. If it's too hot, what I do is I look back to myself and I start to rely on skills. What Luke does is he keeps a glass chopping board, a smooth glass chopping board in the freezer. So the surface he uses his palette is incredibly cold, which I think is a stroke of genius. He's also a dry palette user. Okay. Joel Davison says, fair point. I just like to keep these things factual. Yeah, I like to try and cut through our opinions of why we do things. Yeah, because sometimes our opinions can be holding us back. All right. Like, for example, who said preference earlier on? Yeah, Joe. So Joe said preference, but preference based on what? Yeah. you know, that's fair enough, but we need more if we're to gain more control. Do you see what? Hey, look, that's my mum, Margaret Mary Sewell. Everyone say hello to me, mum. Right, all right, I'm getting bogged down in everyone's comments now. Yeah, paint in Spain, summer is a pain. You find that more paint. Yeah, paint. It's easier to blend. There's going to be a point where I have to not read all these comments, which I'm kind of very grateful of. Yes, it was a skill as you learned. It wasn't using the wet palette as a crutch. There we go. There's a real interesting comment. Hi, hello, hello. Happy Mother's Day. Hello. Oh yeah, Mum. It's Mother's Day in other countries other than Britain, by the way. Mother's Day in Britain is March 14th, I do believe. Yes, you did make some grub. Okay, so generally the biggest reason that people choose a wet palette, other than they're told to by friends, advertisers, and because pros use them, is because my paint's drying out. All right, so that takes us on to paint itself then. It takes us on to this bad boy. Now we've kind of dealt with this. Paint has two jobs to do. Okay? Paint has two jobs to do. Only two jobs. Okay? If paint doesn't do either one of these jobs, this is why you buy it, by the way. If paint doesn't do either one of these jobs, it is useless to us all. What are those two jobs? Let's see a bunch of comments fly. Let's get your answers on. Paint has two jobs to do. What are those two jobs? If it doesn't do either of those two jobs, y'all are screwed. You would not use it. Very interesting answers all popping up. Very interesting answers popping up indeed. So the two answers are, in fact, let's let a few more let's let a few more answers pop up, just in case anybody comes with anything funny for finger painting. But it's, you know, it still has some more jobs to do other than just be for finger painting. To make you a tea, I tell you what, somebody should make me a tea. I've got lemon water because I drank some coffee earlier on before this lesson that was much too strong. And it's well frazzled me out. Arsney says ruining clothes. Is it the paint that really does that? So paint has two jobs to do. And those two jobs are to be a colour and to dry. And if it doesn't do either of them two things, you would not use it. So why is one of the biggest complaints about paint the fact that it's doing one half of its jobs? Oh, my paint's drying out. Oh, my paint's drying out. Oh, my paint dried out. Oh, paint dried out. Oh, paint dried out. Very interesting, I find. So what this tells me when somebody complains that paint dries out, and let's leave temperature aside, we'll deal with that as a separate thing, is you've lost out on 50% control of managing your staff, if you will. Yeah? It's pretty much that. You're saying you can't manage the behavior of your equipment. That is a learnable skill. Now, if you're asking a device to do it for you, are you using a device as a crutch? John Wolfo-Lupo pulls this one. Paint needs to do what you need it to do, says Tom Jennings. If paint is doing what it wants to do, it being a non-sentient thing, yeah, why is this paint controlling what I do and how I feel? I'm the boss. I manage what my tools do, manage what my palette does. I need to be able to manage what my brush does. I need to be able to manage what my water does. Yeah. Control. Remember, the first thing we discussed was control. We need ultimate control over anything. Unlimited power. Yeah. We need control over everything, everything, everything. Yeah. If you want to win that Slayer sword, if you want to win that demon, you want to win that frigging crystal brush, iron skull, whatever it is, if you want fortune and glory and blah, 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 yeah, or even if you just want painting to be less frustrating, you need to take more control. Yeah. T achieved. All right. So, what happens then? Are we all happy with what I've waffled about so far? Any questions from anybody? You all have gone quiet, strangely. So be more like the Emperor. Depends. No, we don't have to be any more like anything as dramatic. What would be good is, what if we removed one of these variables? Ooh. What are we now left with? In fact, let's put that variable back in. Water, sponge, arrow. When using a wet palette, there is also the option of, there's a brush, and there is some water squirting out the end of it. This is our second method of saturation. How much control over this method of saturation do we have? How much control over this method of saturation? One of you said you use a dropper bottle. 100%, says Jonathan Boyd. Remember, this one here was at 0%. 100%, says Johnny Boyd. Tom Jennings says 100%. Mark Fisher says 100%. Wall Griffin 100%. Colonel 100%. Chris Denmark says, what's going on here? You know what's going on here, bro. Yeah. So, how much control over this type of saturation do you get? Hopefully so far I'm still in the realm of only dealing with facts, by the way. Any more? Come on, there's 30 odd of you. I need to know you're all moving. You're all getting this. So, what gives you more control? Having this lack of control and this lack of control, and that, because that's pretty much all the mechanics now of a wet palette, if you include the artist himself, which is this thing here. All right. What gives you more control? Having that variable of 0 control, that variable of 0 control, and this one of total control, or this one. Does this give you more control than the latter? As much control as you have of trembling hands. I've got some great advice for you. One, make a noise in your head. It's hard to make a move like that while making a smooth noise in your head. It's hard to make a smooth gesture with your hands while having a staggered noise in your head. So, for example, Marilyn Monroe would sing her parts. Yeah, it's like a stutter. Yeah, theoretically. Yeah, well, this is all theory right now. Yeah, kind of based on fact though. Yeah. So, by removing this, we're leaving more room for the skill. But the skill is needed because all of a sudden now time is taken away from us. Yeah. Time is really what that wet palette bought most people. That's really what they were asking for. Time. Now, unfortunately, managing paint is precisely what painting is. So if you're avoiding the management of paint, you're avoiding painting. How does that sound? Colonel says it right. The user is still the weakest link. So what if, in our journey to get better at painting, to increase our skills, we actually decided to get better at this? What if? Because that's what we're all after. We're all after increasing our skills. At least I hope so. There are many painters out there that are just like better results and are willing to go down whatever product route will get them there. For example, if you wanted perfectly smooth, flawless blends, you can either develop your skills to do it with a brush, or you can just do it with an airbrush in like seconds. If you just want the result of a smooth result, then just have your airbrush, go for it. But if, like me, I'm the kind of person that I would rather develop the skills to do the do. It's the process of the doing in that with a paintbrush that really excites me. So that's generally the route I'll go down and preach about. That's not to say the other way isn't valid. It is valid, but eyes open. Yeah. So for example, I liken painting a lot to tightrope walking. If a tightrope walker, just treated the result as the objective of his performance, you'd have a pretty crap performance. Because the result, if his objective is just to get to the other side, all he has to do is walk. Yeah. So just as a product will do that. Psst, done. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Yeah. If it's to entertain and impress and challenge himself, then he'll pretend to fall. He'll do flips. He'll go backwards and forwards, and he'll make a performance out of it. And it's the middle part that becomes the point, that becomes what people pay for. Yeah? And that's the bit that interests me, because that's the hard bit. It's all valid. You get across safely. Yeah, but he wants to get across safely, the end result, as well as enjoy the process. Yeah, he entertains himself, as well as impress an audience at the same time. And that's kind of what the miniature painting world is. Yeah. So for me, I look at developing these skills. I look at developing this. Yeah, and managing the aspects of paint, which are its drying and its colours. Does that make sense? All right. Now I've come to a nice little cut-off point here. Y'all have gone quiet, which is nice. And you're pretty much all still here as well, which is fantastic as well. So thank you for being here. Has anybody got any questions so far? Anyone got any questions? I'll give you all a minute. Or even any bullshits to call. Are you all enjoying it? There's another question. War Griffin says makes sense. Are you glad you came now, War Griffin? I'm glad you're here. Honestly, I'm a little bit overwhelmed the fact that we've reached more than 30 people. I'm well impressed with you guys, honestly. So do you see now why I advocate dry pallets a lot more? All right. I advocate dry pallets a lot more. Why? Because they keep me on my toes. Yeah? It's ever so slightly more challenging. It makes me a better painter all the time. It doesn't prevent me from making mistakes. I have to manage my mistakes. I have to manage my risks all the time. As you do with a wet palette. You see, as much as the dry palette has its downsides, yeah, well, a wet palette has just as many, and they're just as much as a pain in the ass. Yeah. See what I mean? So now we've got our eyes open. We may have our preferences, but hopefully now our preferences have got a little bit more information to back them up, or otherwise, essentially. Yeah. Any questions? Reese, good to have you in. Right, so have you all been taking notes as well? Has anyone been taking notes? Sure, can't type fast enough. Sorry, putting on transfers while watching. Fair enough. The journey makes the event more enjoyable. You can develop your skills more than on a dry palette. Be careful here, because as much as I personally think everyone should ditch wet palettes, but at the same time, there's skills to learn in using wet palettes. However, at the same time, they are for the sake of the wet palette more than they are for the sake of the model. Yeah. Let's see what people are doing. You can develop your skills more than on a dry palette. On a wet palette? Is that what you're saying, Reese? Wild Griffin says, might be wrong, but I don't think master painters from 200 years ago didn't use wet palettes. I have no clue. I'm sure I have no clue. I'm not even going to make a statement on it. I haven't got a clue. Colonel says, disagree, Reese. It may be easier to develop the skills. Clarify, Reese, whether you mean, can you develop your skills more on a wet palette or on a dry palette? Which one are you saying? With oil paints, no. Yeah, you don't really want to use a wet palette of oil paints. Yeah, or smoke near it if you do. There'd just be a tray of turpentine or thinners or something like that. You go up in a giant green flame. Anyway, so let's go back to the idea of, in fact, a couple of big comments just flew in. Does anyone know if wet palettes are made of recyclable plastic? Not a clue. Wouldn't the rate of evaporation match the rate of saturation? Well, who knows? That all depends on the temperature of your water, temperature of your room. Is there a breeze in your room? Is the heat, is the breeze warm or is it cool? Are you breathing on your paint a lot? Are you breathing on your wet palette a lot? Yeah, do you see what I mean? Is there a radiator under your table? Those two things, how are you ever going to match them without real precise scientific equipment? Yeah, you'd have to know. Wouldn't have was exactly that. Well, that's the power of assumptions. If you assume that things work in the way you would ideally like them to, then you'll be disappointed a lot of the time with painting, because painting is about managing real tiny variables, and if you haven't developed the skills to be sensitive enough to those variables, the viscosities of paint and the amount of water in your brush and bristles and the pressure on those bristles to get certain performances out, then you're going to struggle. Okay, I'd really love to read every comment, but I can see I'm going to get bogged down otherwise. So now, the surface of a model, which is generally primer based on metal, plastic or resin, some kind of plastic, add more as you see fit. I don't really care that much, but understanding how to manage your paint on the model is a really important skill to have. Yes or no? And while you guys answer, I'm going to read some of these things. Not having the skill to manage paint on a plastic, metal, resin, undercoated model, unless you're David Soper, is a real valuable and probably the most important skill that we really want to be developing. Yes or no? Pallets, crutch, nicely. I've used different types of paints. I have used different types of paints. Yeah, I don't really care for them that much. Not to say that they're no good. They've got the place. If you really want rich, deep colours, oil paint is definitely a way to go. I just don't have time to wait for them to dry, fart around with thinners, etc., and blah blah blah. Just not my thing. So in theory, a wet palette has extra variables. Yes, it does, as a matter of fact. In terms of overthinking the whole process, yes. Wet palette adds extra variables for the sake of itself, not for the sake of your project. And doesn't the breeze and heat or humidity have effects on painting? Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yes, sure, it does. And those are the skills we're about learn about developing. That's what you'll need to. Well, that's what you learn with me in private lessons and what have you. I mean, you can develop your skills more on a dry palette, such as, yes, that's absolutely true. Though wet palette does have skills to learn, yeah, those skills are generally about managing the wet palette as opposed to managing the paint on a surface. Because I'm about to answer your question now, or they answer my own question. So I ask you guys, does managing paint on a surface that is plastic, metal, or resin with an undercoat over it a massive skill to learn? Does managing paint on a surface just like this, yeah, is it important skill to learn? And if you could prep your paint on a surface that simulated that model to see if it was exactly how you wanted it to behave before you found out it was good or no good on a model, would you choose to do that? So if you could simulate the surface of your model, yeah, and test your paint and prepare your paint on that surface to see how it would behave on that surface, so you can then get optimal results on that surface with fewer mistakes, would you do it? Does a wet palette or dry palette do that job? And that is why a wet palette skills suit the skills only for the sake of a wet palette, whereas dry palette skills simulate what you need to do on a model. Yeah. Once you have paint system right to match what you want it to do. Yes. Wait, does David Soper not undercoat his miniatures? Correct. David Soper does not undercoat his miniatures. And if you look at some of my miniature painting myths, you might find, unless it's on my list of things to do, yeah, undercoat is not necessary. You've got to be careful in this industry, you know, guys. The amount of marketing, it's insane. Marketing. Yeah, so that's why I'm quite passionate about what I teach, how I teach. Yeah, because I'm getting you guys to start thinking critically. That's why I ask you a lot of questions. Yeah, I already know all the answers. I've heard all the answers, whether they be true, false, right, wrong, smart ass answers, whatever, you name it, I've heard it. Because I've probably taught thousands of people. I've heard them all, and I've taught people of beginner level all the way up to Golden Demon winning level, both before and after winning Golden Demons. Yeah, I've taught everyone. Well, I've not taught everyone, but you know what I'm saying. I've taught all types of painters of all levels, and I've heard all the answers. Yeah, that's why I encourage you to get all your answers out. No one's answers scare me. You know, so I'm here for you. Anyway, waffle. Tommy, nice move. I will melt down G-dub screws and make a dry palette out of it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is actually a shell from a Warmer store. It's kind of like puffed up plastic. Using plasticard, perfect. Using plasticard is perfect. Now, before I carry on, it may seem like I'm bashing wet palettes to a degree. I'm not bashing them. I'm just letting you know the facts. The next thing is, I'm not saying stop using them, because earlier on somebody said they use both. There are many people that use both. What they do is they use the wet palette as a place to keep the regulation of paint's evaporation, the regulation of paint evaporation, more suitable to them. They'll probably test it out on something like a thumb, yeah, or a dry palette before proceeding, which still only advocates the use of dry palettes more as a place of, as a tool of preparation, if you will. Okay. They're essentially very similar skills. Learning to use a dry palette and base coating. Well spotted, Tom. Well spotted. So hopefully now you guys, I've now hopefully, judging by that answer, unless Tom already knew it and he's been on one of my courses, I'm not too sure. Let me know if I'm right or wrong, Tom. But hopefully now you guys I've put you guys in a mindset that's a little more critically thinking now. You're going, and you start to now see where I'm trying to lead you to. Yeah. Water Griffin says it's a dream of yours to win a golden demon. Dude, come and see me. I'll help you out with that. I'd love to help you out with that. Yeah. Sounds like a Beastie Boy lyric. Yeah, I nearly said it sounds like some kind of prog metal band. album, doesn't it? The good old painter's thumb. Any questions so far? Let me have another quick swig. I'm running out of water. I'm well frazzled by that coffee. What have we done? An hour and 14 minutes. Some people have dropped out. They might have something to go and do. Tom says he's very clever. Okay. Right, have you enjoyed it so far? Have you enjoyed it so far? Have I made it clear really what the big differences are between wet palettes and dry palettes? Because I want to now go into the deep and dirty dark secrets of dry palettes now. Because it's not all rosy on the side of dry palettes. So let's have our eyes opened in dry palette department. Okay? Because a dry palette is not just a dry palette. You can make poor decisions with dry palettes. Yeah, on materials you choose, on how you prepare them or not. Yeah. And each of them can bring their own, excuse me, ups and downs. Got a question for you. In fact, I've already answered it. We're doing the deep, dirty, dark side of palettes. So, this palette's ceramic. I have come prepared with a ceramic tile, or this is a plate. Ceramics. Yay! We all use ceramics in Games Workshop for 40 years. Yay! Ceramics. No. Don't use ceramics. Who knows why not to use ceramics? And if you do use ceramics, there needs to be a certain condition you need to use them in. Who knows why not to use ceramics? This paint here is all dry, by the way. You can hear it. Who knows why not to use ceramics? Unless there's certain conditions. I'll use Screaming Skull. Let's get a bit of paint out. Great refreshing to be teaching. Oh, nice one, Colonel. So, Colonel, by the way, you flew all the way over from Germany just to private lesson with me, by the way. That's commitment. That's commitment. So, he's going to have a strong opinion on whether it was worth it or not. If you want his opinion, feel free, go and follow his YouTube channel or his Instagram. And go and ask him his honest opinion on what it was like spending any amount of time with me. I really enjoyed spending time with him. Creep. Okay. Careful with the dirt, tight. Your mum's here. Oh, my mum's a bit filthy anyway. I'm not. She's not, honestly, really. Right. Mark Fisher says temperature difference. Colonel says no clue. Chris Denmark says flakes of paint. You have to clean it before you pour soup in it. Yeah, valid, Arsney. Jonathan Boyd says porous. Sarah says too glossy. Colonel says, all right, the lesson is worth every cent. Thank you. Cheers, Christoph, man. You're welcome back anytime, by the way. I'd have you here just socially. It was cool. When you've used tile, when you've used tiles, the paint flakes off and gets a bit messy. Okay. The glazing on ceramic is nothing like the surface you're going to paint on. That's the good answer. Shows you've been paying attention to today's class, Mr. Shady. So I've just got a little bit of watered down, what you call it. Look. Who wants these flakes of paint in their Golden Demon winning paint job? Yeah, that's just acrylic on acrylic. Yeah, this has even been diluted. But just shit all in it. So, tiles. Bullshit idea. Unless you never clean them for a very long time and they just layer up and layer up and layer up and layer up. Okay? And then that paint can't come away. And then you've got a surface of paint on paint, which simulates the surface of your model. Tiles, not great. Next thing, MDF. Bear with me one sec. Oh, I've lost my MDF tile. Oh, here it is. So I was invited over to Holland. Gert de Hollander and Pascal Roos and other fantastic painters from the Netherlands. They invited me over to run a course, and they made these fantastic things. Look at it, that's awesome. Yeah, individual tiles. But the thing is, I would never use this tile or this MDF in this state. Now, MDF was the first kind of tile I actually ended up using when I worked for Games Workshop. And it very much was like this here. Let's just angle you down. Look, see the old paint station. And it was when we started undercoating them black, I started using it more as a palette. That was really where the penny dropped for me as a professional painter. But I would never use this. Now, as somebody said here, Jonathan Boyd said porous. For this, these are not porous. These are porous. Yeah, these are porous. Your paint will dry out in crazy amount of time if you use this. So what would I do? Well, like I just said, I'd spray it with, I'd seal it. You need 2 or 3 good coats of undercoat. Yeah, and generally, what I'd do is, in fact, I'll leave that for a second later. Generally, it'll still need a good few coats of paint. Yeah, so that's MDF. A good choice, just not ideal. It takes a lot of prep. The next one is plasticard. Awesome. Just use it as is. Ali and Mike McVeigh both use plasticard, and it's just great stuff. So generally, just to sum up the bad points, anything too shiny and too glossy, it's going to give you flakes. Yeah. So those that remember the fridge trick from earlier on, as its downsides, it's going to keep your paint wetter. This is too absorbent at first. But I'm glad I've kept this for years as a proper memento. And this is why I said earlier on, see that lid? There's your dry palette. All right. So notice. So this is what I like to use. It's basically a bit of plastic, really. If my models are going to be black, I'll spray it black, and then I can see how my paint behaves on black. If my models are going to be grey, I'll spray it grey, and I'll see how my paint behaves on grey. Do you see the logic in what I do? Yeah. Now, I need to up my skills, or any painter needs to up the skills to use a dry palette. Yeah, but those skills that you're developing to manage paint on a dry palette, manage its moisture, its consistency, how it moves, how it doesn't move, yeah, are all skills you need to take onto a model. Okay. If paint is drying out, the same amount of paint spread thin, does it dry faster or slower than the same amount bunched up? Which dries faster? The same amount spread thin over a surface or puddled up? Which dries faster? Yeah, precisely. So if you're using a dry palette and your paint is drying out faster and you don't want to use a wet palette, there's your answer. Yeah. If you want to save mixes, pots, mix more of it. Yeah. Any questions? Because we've pretty much done it, you know. We've gone through a vast amount of information. Is there anything I've missed? Anybody? So there probably is stuff I've missed, and there's probably stuff I've said to other students. But I feel like I've got the point across. I feel like I've got the message out there for you guys, and hopefully you'll start being a little bit more mindful about why you're doing things and how to do things. So, excuse me. Thin dries faster, spread thin. Yep. Mr. Soper uses one of these. You might notice mine isn't used. I'm just good with a dry palette. It's as simple as that, really. Who else uses one of these? Matt Kennedy, Slayer Sword winner, ex-heavy metal painter. Ali McVeigh, she uses, like I said, Ali and Mike, they will just hammer a piece of plasticard in giant puddles of paint, even if they're just doing a single miniature. They'll just go nuts, you know. And for those that know the McVeighs will realise that they are the godfathers of miniature painting the world over. You know, we all come from those guys. You know, so it's not as if they don't know what they're on about. They know what they're on about. You know, so yeah. Okay, so here we are. We're into question time. I think I've said everything I need to say. So again, you know, I can't believe we reached 30 odd people. You know, thank you. Thank you. If you've not slapped like now on the like button, please do it, honestly. If you enjoyed it, and if you didn't enjoy it, then just say, hey. Or even, if you didn't enjoy it because I haven't given you whatever information, then pipe up now. Ask the question, man. Ask the question. Okay, so Colonel says, what you do on the pallet, you do on the model. Yeah, what Pom? What happens on the pallet happens on the model. You create bullshit on the pallet, you will put bullshit on your model. Yeah? So you need to take the variables that you can't control out, because they will increase the chances of you putting more bullshit on the model. Does brush choice come into this at all, or is it just a case of being sensible? Well, brush choice is a separate subject to palette choice. Okay, so I'm going to say no. Would I consider using brush choices? Why would I choose different brushes, different techniques? Dry brushing, blending, washing. You know, glazing. I'd choose different brushes for each, though I could use the same brush for each at the same time. Does the palette influence how I do any of that? No, it doesn't. I just know I wouldn't use a wet palette for paint that I was going to dry brush with. It just doesn't seem to make sense, you know. But I'd use a dry palette for any paint I was going to do anything with. So yeah, be sensible, whatever that means. Would I prime one of these shiny, slick plastic palettes? Yeah, I probably would. I absolutely probably would. Because if this is... I haven't actually tested it, so let's test it. Let's give it the flake test. Let's say... there we go. So, range of consistencies on there from thick to thin. I get my screaming skull. Right, while that's drying, let's have a look at the last comment. Really enjoyed these sessions. Cheers, Chris. Thank you. Recently went back through your Gollum painting notes where they've been. Oh, nice one. When did you do the course, by the way? I remember our private lesson when I was working in Bath. Are those the notes you're thinking of? The reason I ask is because the way I teach is very much a product of my early past, and I've kind of forgotten now what and how I actually taught, you know, and it's been a very organic process to get to where I am now, and I feel I just like to pay homage just to who I was. I literally cannot remember not being able to teach the way I teach. It's so much a part of me now, and you know, I really love it, but I just like to know what I thought back then, you know. Malan says, really appreciate your time and advice. Gonna have to go now, thank you, but we'll put what you learned into practice and see how we go. Guys, thank you. If you want to know more about how to actually manage your paint on palettes and things like that, there are things I teach in private lessons and things like that. You know, I really go into detail technically about the whys, hows, do's. You've seen how I teach. This is how I teach, yeah? I really help you, lead you towards the answers that are going to give you great information, essentially. Chris Denmark says, God, it was years ago. It was up that tall building. All right. Yeah, I'd love to see those notes. I think it might be the same as what I'm teaching now. I've got a sneaky feeling it might be the same. I might have used a list more back then. Now I use a little bit more of an organic. Is it organic? I suppose it is organic. It's still structured, but it's just not structured in the way a list is structured. You know, the way I teach is structured more in the order painting actually happens in, and the order that students come up against problems in. So generally, I already know what mistakes you're going to make and what troubles you're going to have before you've made them. You know, all I do is just lead you from problem to lead students from problem to problem and help them fix them as they get there. But I help them using their knowledge, because all you guys are already fantastic painters. Like I said, you've just been weighed down by dogma, whether it be blind faith because somebody on the internet said so or does so, or marketing. Okay, remember that. And almost every part of your painting journey has those weights attached to it. Yeah, so I see it as my job to help you remove those weights, tie some balloons to them if we can't remove them, or just hand you more balloons to lighten you off and just let go of them weights and off you go and get better at painting. All right. Okay, you just started painting your Darth Vader with a dry palette. Nice one, War Griffin. What, right now? I've made that much of an impact. What kind of electronic gubbins would you need for a private lesson? I use my mobile phone. You know, send me a message on Instagram. You know, I'll happily take you through all the particulars of that business. Wow, 2015, March 15th. Can't remember where I was back then. Before I go, thanks for the lesson. Oh, dude, cheers, Fishy. Brian Phillips, very enjoyable lesson. Thank you. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Honestly, I've enjoyed it an insane amount. I'm over the moon at how many people have turned up. It's the most I've ever had in a live stream. So, you know, thank you. Yeah, tag me in some pictures of you using a dry palette on Instagram, things like that. But also, I want to see if anybody drew the diagram of me of the wet palette. You know, tag me a picture in that as well. You know, yeah. Thank you. I am honestly, I'm over the moon. I was absolutely dreading. I was dreading it because I thought I was just going to sit here with no one again, and you guys have just. You've turned out in force, really, to the point where I can't read every comment, you know, and that's something that, because I like to read every comment, you know. Joel Davidson, what do you say? Best thing you've learned is making the bloody smooth noise. Honestly, right? Yeah. Yeah, do you know what, right? Honestly, this evening's keeping on giving. To hear you say that, Joel, right? I genuinely mean it. To hear you say that, you know, that's a message to every painter that was in your position. You hopefully have just made through this information and through your own demonstration, you've just made every painter in your situation. You've just made their life better. Yeah, by just putting that one comment on. Yeah, you've just made their belief in themselves like, oh, I can do it. You know, and I believe everyone can do it. And I've taught people with less limbs than most of us. Yeah, and I've taught other people with less limbs than that. And I've taught people with Parkinson's. I've taught people with what do you call it? Why am I being a cabbage? With amnesia. I've taught people with what's that learning difficulty called? All sorts of mental conditions. Yeah, ADHD. I keep wanting to say Tourette's, but it's not Tourette's. Why am I being a cabbage with this? Autism. There you go. I've taught people with autism. I've taught people with emotional difficulties. I've taught people of all conditions, and these people produce results. Yeah, and anyone's excuses, they don't fly with me, you know. And the people that aren't painting because of whatever perceived limitations on themselves are using those limitations just to prove to the world that the world's against them. Maybe, I don't know, it's too deep all that. There's probably people out there that have a very legitimate reason for not painting, but the point is still there, you know. And you can do it if you really want to do it. And there's methods and means and ways. And yeah, man, you made me night there. So yeah, I'll try it now. Try and do a jagged noise, a jagged So you can't, your body and your mind kind of always want to work together. Do a jagged move with your hand and make a smooth noise with your head, and then try the opposite way around. You find it pretty difficult. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. It's just a stutter. It's a stutter here instead of here. Yeah, it's mental. And what you perceive as physical is it's a mental game. All right. You know, your body only moves because of neurons firing. Neurons fire because of an impulse from somewhere, and that impulse comes from only one place. So what subconsciously is running that's giving you that? Well, let's give it a job to do. See what I mean? You have a job to do. Now, all right, yeah, here we go. You know, so there's many people that'll sit when they come to a class with me. They'll hear me. I'll audibly make noises when I'm painting certain things. You know, like when I did the waves on the water. Yeah, see what I mean? So yeah. Right, guys, unless there's any final questions, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for coming. Honestly, you've made me night. You've made me night with your questions, with your input, with your results. You've made my night with your attendance, with the amount of likes you've just whizzed up there, or if you're on the actual YouTube down on the screen somewhere. To you Patreon supporters, you know, because there's a few of you in. Honestly, I'm well grateful for that. And when it comes to Patreon, as I do more of these live streams for you guys, I will be leaving them public for a short time to encourage the people who aren't Patreon supporters to make their effort with spending time in a place. Yeah. And which is actually attend the live stream. Yeah, which benefits me, benefits you, benefits everybody. Yeah, so that's the effort I'd like those to make. If you don't want to be a Patreon supporter, be in a time, in a place, and let's do some learning and get you where you need to go. Then after a short period of time, I'm going to move it to Patreon only, because you Patreon supporters also make a different type of effort, which is financial effort, and I can't really let that go unacknowledged. You know, so everybody gets to learn, yeah. And live will always be the best place to learn for everybody. So that's why live will always be public and always be available to everybody. So that's how this is going to work. This one I'm going to leave public forever because it shows people how I teach. You know, it's going to give you guys an insight into how much you like me or not. Like me, you know, like me, right? And yeah, thank you. Last but not least, I say last but not least, I've still got more things to say. If you want to know what brushes I like to use, or if you want to try out brushes that other top painters use, there's links below. Yeah, I get a kickback financially, and you get some awesome brushes if you choose to use those links. Yeah, through Element Games, who are just fantastic people. They've treated me really well over the years. So that's another way of supporting this channel if you want to and getting something out of it. There's also links to my tuition if you want to get in contact through tuition, but generally just give me a shout on Instagram. That's the one. And then lastly, I'm trying to give this guy away. Look at him. This is my speed painting. 2 hours to paint this, start to finish. And I'm trying to give him away for people that leave comments and like, subscribe, and comment on my Myrmidon videos. And if you can make the comment telling me why you want this guy, and I'm just going to choose somebody. I want as many people as possible to tell me why they want this. And strangely, I'm struggling finding loads of people. Of all me thousands of followers on Instagram and what have you, like maybe 10 people have said. I don't know. I find it really strange and hard to disappear this fella. He's a top model. I'd like to keep a lot of stuff, but I've got to reduce my collection down. It's pretty much taking up 2 full rooms in my house. It's almost all got to go. So yeah, guys, thank you. Like, subscribe, share, honestly, tell the world if you really enjoyed this. Thank you. Let's see what some of these comments are. Great quality live stream. Nice one. It seems like nice one. Cheers. Great to catch up. Great session. Very well. Thank you. Give him to me. We last bathed on the same day. SJC, you need that boy. We are shy. Guys, thank you. And I don't want to go really. I could sit here doing this all night. I might carry on Instagram later on. So yeah, tag me in your things. Share this video. Recommend me. I love you. Please love me back. All right, guys. Any last questions on pallets before we go? I'm sure I could go on forever. You know. I know, Joel. I'm sorry, dude. But there's still things to learn on a wet palette and still skills to develop. So why not? Yeah. Send it back unless you've used it. Oh, sorry, man. There are many videos on how to use a wet palette on YouTube. I would look at some of the top painters like Alfonso Corrales, Banshee. I would go and look at his advice over anybody else's advice. So if you to get your money's worth out of it, be very discerning about who you listen to, why you're listening to them. Just because they're using them doesn't mean they know how to use them. And if they know how to use them, it doesn't mean they necessarily know how to use them optimally. The way information is great, yeah, and you've got to be grateful for it. Please use a very discerning mindset. And like I did in this video, I use a very specific and critical questioning to lead you to the factual answers to see through any of the bull. All right, and be kind to people, no matter what. That's the last thing I'm going to say. All right, guys, thank you very, very, very much. I'm going to call it quits there. Have a top night. I loved it. I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.